I've decided to change my camera angle this morning. Give you a slightly different view of my garden. So here we are, 8:15. I'm just about 50 miles from London in the UK. And we're scheduled to have a really hot day. 30 degrees, which is really, really unusual for us. Normally 28 degrees is a really hot day, and that equates to about 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's going to be a scorcher. So I haven't got that many flowers in my garden to cut, but I have actually got quite a few flowers that I've had around the house which need a little bit of a revamp. So I thought I would go through and revamp those. I've got some sweet peas behind me that really do need cutting. And then look how glorious my hydrangea are looking. So I have actually got some hydrangea in a vase arrangement that I did in class last week in Canterbury. And some of the hydrangeas are looking a little bit bedraggled now. It's quite early in the season to use them as cut flowers. So I need to go through and, pull out of my arrangements what isn't looking its best in order that I can enjoy them for longer rather than chucking absolutely everything into the bin. And when I say the bin, I've actually got a compost bucket down here. So if you are watching live, do say hello. Let me know whereabouts in the world you're watching from. And if you're watching the replay as well, you're welcome to leave a comment too, and we can catch up. So, nothing like starting a hot day off with a hot cup of tea. What shall we look at first? So, this was my Denby pottery, and really everything in it here is set to go. So this must be the arrangement I did. It must be 2 weeks old at least by now. So what do you expect? 2 weeks with cut flowers. So I'm going to, as I go through, I've got my compost bucket at my side. So I'm going to go through, and I've just missed that comment that came up. So hopefully you're telling me you can hear me okay. Comment again. Can you hear me okay? So I'm going to get rid of lots of these bits and pieces. I'm going to keep the little allium because that's dried now. So a little keep pile over here. And also I've got the lavender, which I cut last week. So that's still going strong. And actually it's started to come out into flower. You need to pick it when it's still at the bud form. But when it comes out into flower, it will eventually shatter. So everything else in there are the sweet peas, and they have just gone over. So I'm going to get rid of those. I might keep this here as my keeping pot on the side there. And then over here, I've had this ragwort growing. It grows in our garden because the cinnabar moths really like ragwort. It's quite a shocking yellow though, and I had nothing else on my kitchen windowsill. I had that, and that's just gone over. And then I don't know whether you saw the video that was scheduled to be published yesterday afternoon. It was the one where I decided to treat myself to a subscription service for flowers. So I've bought a bucket of flowers from a local flower farmer who delivered them to my front door, and I've signed up for 4 deliveries at various points during the summer. And these dahlias were in the bucket, and they've gone totally over. Dahlias, they're really, really fashionable flower, but they're not very long lasting. So when I was revamping my flowers, I took these out and put them in a little kilner jar. And now the time has come when they really do need to be got rid of. So they're going straight into the bucket. And then I've got one tiny, tiny scabious bud. It's so small. That's just going to get lost. But I can't bear to throw it away. It just looks too nice. So I don't know how you feel about the heat of the day. I am not particularly good with the heat. It gives me headaches and nosebleeds, and makes me feel quite unwell really. So I'm really enjoying getting up. I always get up a little bit early in the morning. I'm always up by 7 o'clock. And sometimes on the days when things are a bit wobbly around me, I like sticking to my routines. And I'm hoping now, with the warmer weather coming, that instead of sitting and eating my breakfast at the breakfast table, I'm going to have it outdoors. So I had my breakfast outdoors on Sunday, and I had my breakfast outdoors today. So I think that's the beginning of a whole brand new routine. So let me know in the comments, is it warm enough where you are to have breakfast outside? I really think It makes you feel like you're on holiday. Just the sound of your cutlery clonking on your crockery, that's the sound of holidays to me, and I really, really love it. Okay then, what next? Well, I've got a dilemma next. These were my sweet peas that I picked. Now, normally when people ask me about sweet peas, I say, aren't they absolutely lovely, lovely fragrance, but we never have much luck growing them. And this year, it's the first time I can remember in tens of years that we've actually had some success. So this must be about the 5th bunch of sweet peas that I have picked. If I was being really, really strict, I can't remember when I picked these, perhaps Saturday morning, they've probably gone over. But the trick is not to look at your flowers too carefully. If I've got those on my kitchen windowsill, when I walk into my kitchen, I just think, what a fabulous bunch of sweet peas. So I might keep those as is. Now the best thing that has survived so far this week are my herbs. So last week, mind you, they are only a week old, so perhaps that's got something to do with it. The herbs that I picked last week, and also my finished lavender bottle. So it took me about 20 minutes to make. So if you want to find out how to watch the lavender bottle, leave me a comment and I'll send you the link to that. So you can either watch last week's video where there's a link underneath it. So I'm quite enjoying that, the herbs there, and just sort of showcasing them. I think what I might do is with my little bit of lavender there, I might as well put it in there and then I won't lose it. So that could be nice enough to live another day. I just need to make sure that the stems are in water. So probably when I get back to the kitchen, I'll tip all the water away and then refill it. And I can see some of my stems are quite short, so I need to make sure that it's filled up quite to the top. And then, this is the arrangement we made in class last week. Now, I was rather surprised when I was going around the house collecting all my flower arrangements that I picked this one up, and I had, fortunately, I'd put it on a tiny saucer, and when I picked it up the saucer was full of water, and I don't know whether that's because I've got some kind of hairline crack on this and the water's been oozing out, or whether because I have been making a real point because of the warm weather to keep the water topped up, and I don't know whether as I've transferred it from my kitchen sink to my living room that the water's slopped over the side, so I just need to keep an eye on that. So it's all looking okay. The roses are starting to get a little bit spongy, but they'll be fine for another day. But what is suffering is the hydrangea, and I would say that one has gone totally over. So the other two hydrangeas in here, one of them looks actually I don't know whether that one's gone over as well. Is it savable? I don't know. There's only one way to find out whether your flowers can be revived. So what the hydrangeas like, they like their heads to be submerged in water. So I've got a watering can of water here. So I could waggle it around in the water. It looks really bedraggled now. And I should have some scissors. Gosh, I don't think I've... Oh, yes, I have scissors. And I'll recut the stems and then slide that back into my arrangement. So I don't know whether that will actually bounce back to life. But if it doesn't, I need to keep it somewhere cool. If by this evening it hasn't come back to life, I probably just need to take it out of the arrangement. So the arrangement can live on as another day, slightly evolving over time. And it looks much better if you take things out as they die or replenish them, rather than sitting there with flowers that just look dead. So I'm trying now to wiggle out the other hydrangea. There it is. That was a problem because it was on a kinky stem. So I might as well do the same thing here. Give it a waggle in the watering can, recut the stem, and then slide that back in. So everything else looks reasonably okay. I'll find the gap in my grid there. And if you're on my Facebook group, we've been talking about these purple flowers here. These are agapanthus. There's also a sort of another variety, a trilitia, which is the same sort of flower but much more delicate in form, but this is actually an agapanthus. So I've gone here for all the colours, actually primary colours now I look at it. I've got sunflower in the middle, the red roses and the red hydrangea, and then the blues of the lavender and the agapanthus. And what I'm just doing as I look through is some of the agapanthus is going over. It's sort of dried out, the flowers have matured and the petals are starting to shrivel. So sometimes it can just be as enough as tapping them and those petals will fall off. It just makes it look as, you know, as prime condition as absolutely possible. So I find now that the sun is coming round. I can't actually see the camera. So perhaps I'll have to adjust a little bit. Let's see if I bring you around that way. But I won't be staring into the sunshine quite as much. So I've been round the garden this morning collecting a few bits and pieces, and I'm sitting here in front of my hydrangea, which is doing really well for the first time in absolutely ages. But we don't actually have that many flowers in our garden, and I'm just wondering whether I can actually make an arrangement that's got one sweet pea in it, one sweet william, one stem of marjoram, and a Verbena bonasaris, I don't know what this is called. It's something beginning with a V, and then the second word is a B, bonaris, I don't know. Very fashionable a few years ago at Chelsea Flower Show. But what I thought I might add in, can you see these? I'm not sure whether you can. Let me show you. So our poppies have flowered. These are a lovely purple variety, and the poppy heads are really starting to swell up. So what I could do is add those into my vase. So I'm going to take because they always shrivel and they don't look very nice. But if you wanted to dry these, I would say these are just about at the stage of being the right size to dry. They haven't quite developed. When the seeds are ready to come out, you get a holes around the edge here. So I would say that probably at this stage, they're quite good for picking for drying. If you leave them much later in the season, they will start, the seed head will mature, and then when you come to dry them, as soon as you knock the heads, they will spill out their seeds. So what you can do is to pick them, put them into a paper bag, imagine a paper bag, and when you dry them, hang them upside down, any seeds that are going to be shattered will end up in the paper bag and not all over your floor, and then you can scatter those around later in the year. So I'm going to put those in there for the moment, and then shall we see whether we can get any more sweet peas. So let me come around here. Oh, it's a bit cooler over here in the shade. So we've got the hydrangeas here, sweet peas here. So I'm cutting them as long as I possibly can, but these ones aren't particularly long. But even if they aren't long, you still need to cut them off the main stems, because otherwise they'll go to seed and then the whole lot of the blooming will shut down. So this is such a lovely thing to do, to be able to come out into the garden and crop the flowers. I just wish we had more flowers in our garden. But I'm not the gardener, so I don't get a say. And growing flowers is quite hard work, so we've mainly got shrubs. I'm going to have to here sacrifice, I think, a stem. I don't know if you can see. It's just a total circle curled round. It would almost look like a lovely ring. Right, I need to come round your side. So now all I've got left is the green. There's no colourful flowers there at all, but the scent on them is really intense, much more intense than the flowers I can't quite decide about. So aren't these absolutely gorgeous? So do you have sweet peas in your garden? You'll have to let me know. And that one that was there, going right round in a circle, I shall probably wear it as a ring. So I need to get those into water as soon as I possibly can. So whenever you're cutting flowers from the garden, you need to remember that they do become very vulnerable and they will wilt. So I'm picking these. I say in the cool of the day, it's getting quite warm now, but I would say you need to come out, you get up, have a cup of tea, straight into the garden, get yourself, a jug or a bucket filled with water, so as you cut, your flowers are in water, and then go around. Now I'm looking at my freshly cut sweet peas versus the ones I was thinking could survive another day. And when you see them side by side, quite clearly these are the older ones. There's a lovely, vibrant, crisp colour here, and it's just ever so slightly more muted. So having seen the two together, I'm going to be ruthless and say these have had their day, and I'm going to get rid of those. So how about making a mini arrangement? So what I might do is just twist you around that way. I can't keep looking in that sunshine. It's making my eyes go a bit strange. So I'll come round and sit on the steps here. And then we can make a little arrangement. So I've got my trusty, I think this is my favourite vase at the moment, with the Kilner jar with the little grid lid to it. So I do have these for sale, £6 each, plus postage and packaging. But if you like, I can put the link to that. I bought them on Amazon, but I did have to buy quite a lot of the jam jars. The lids, I think I had to buy 16 or something, or 12, something like that. They've got this little screw top bit with a grid. And these Kilner jars, I guess I must tip that water away and add some fresh. The Kilner jars, I normally look for them in a charity shop and be quite discerning about how much you pay. Personally, I wouldn't pay more than £1, but I'm really looking for these at 50p or 75p each. So fresh water in there, screw top lid, and then let's get arranging. So this isn't going to be the most fantastic arrangement you've ever seen, because what I'm doing is a cut and plonk to put my flowers into the jar. So it's just going to be a pleasing way of arranging flowers, just to give you a little bit of pleasure. And the fact is, you're engaged in the moment, and I think that's sort of joy of flower arranging is to me. It's a creative activity, it's a mindful activity, and if I wasn't cutting my flowers and arranging them, I'd have no need to be out in the garden. I would probably be getting on doing the washing up, all the household chores, getting on with work, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a really nice way of, walking the grounds, as my husband and I like to say, discovering what, come into bloom you haven't noticed before, listening to the birds, the sounds around you. If I really, really concentrate, we've got a motorway, it's about a mile away as the crow flies. So perhaps I should be tuning into the sounds of nature, but I can actually hear the motorway in the background. My neighbour's got a little fountain running in their garden, and just little things like that. It's nice to stop and think. So let's go. Oops. You'll have to let me know in the comments what that is. Verbena, verbinum, bonaracis. At all. I say I'm a gardener. I'm not a gardener. I don't know. So I'm recutting the stems and putting them into the jar there. So herbs from last week. It's always a good idea, even just to get into the practice that when you put your flowers in water and then you put them into your vase, just to recut them. Now I have got this tiny rose I picked this morning. It's on its last legs, but this was given to me, the plant, just after my mum died. It was given to me by a friend. So I thought it'd be quite nice as a remembrance to my mum to bring some of that indoors. So that is a slightly larger flower. So I need to decide which way's the front. So I like this side here. It's got like some measurements. It's got fluid ounces and millilitres. So I'm going to make that the front of my vase and have my larger, even though the rose is quite small, in this context it's the largest flower I've got. So I'm going to have that facing front. And if you are arranging flowers at home, you need to remember where the front is, because sometimes you get on and you're arranging, you think, oh, that was really beautiful, that's how I like it. And then, you put it down and you think, oh, I just need something in the back, and then you kind of forget where the front was. And you'll find that, it's great if you're doing an all-round arrangement, but if you're doing something that is going to sit on the side and you know it's going to only face one way. You need to make sure you've got all the good stuff so you can see it. And then a little bit of green. Now, I'm still finding a shrubbery in our garden is a little bit too soft. And we do have loads of this native geranium. It's got quite an insignificant flower. Now, some of them have gone a little bit over. So I'm picking this mainly for the greenery rather than the insignificant little pink flower. So do that again, recut the stems, and then just to try and fill my vase out a little bit. And then a solitary tiny sweet William. So what I have tried to do is you could go multicoloured. I find it quite hard to go multicoloured when I do things. So I try to pick a colour palette and stick with it. And really, most things in our garden are sort of pinks, reds on the sort of blue sides. Although we do have the occasional yellow with that ragwort. So, and there's actually a yellow dahlia coming up here, an orangey dahlia. So I try to keep it, to avoid the clashing colours. But sometimes clashing colours are nice. And then I'm going to fill in with the sweet peas which I've got. Now, I will say that if you're local to me, you may well, as I walk my way into town, and you may walk the same way, there is a little, someone in their front garden sells little bunches of flowers like this that they've grown in their town garden. And for not much more than that, they charge £5. So just imagine if you were just, going to visit a friend, you could get a jam jar, pick just, it doesn't have to be an absolutely massive arrangement. You could pick a few stems from your garden. I've got, I've got 6 stems in there, plus my sweet peas, and you could make a really, really lovely gift. So when you're gifting something to somebody, it doesn't have to be really expensive or really flamboyant. It's just a few little things that you've snipped from your garden that you've grown with love, and then you're passing on to your friends. So don't feel it has to go, totally overboard. And then my sweet peas. So some of these are going to be on such short stems that I'm going to have to make sure my water is sufficiently high. I might start off with my long-stemmed ones. I don't know whether, as I say, I'm not a gardener. Is it that sweet peas through the season get shorter and shorter? Because my memory was that these were quite long-stemmed, the first few cuts I made. So I might I've bought myself at our local vintage and antiques fair an old paste bottle. Do you remember, did you ever had salmon and shrimp sandwiches when you were a child? They were my favourite. Or beef with tomato. So I've got a tiny vintage meat paste bottle, and I might put my really short stems in there so I can have a mass of sweet pea stems plus just a few to accent what I've got here. So I think that's what you need to do with your flowers. Display them absolutely en masse so they look really abundant, or just have a sprinkling of a few. That's what works best. So what I will do is, pending those going into a tiny, tiny jar on their own, I shall put those back into my little jug of water on the side here. And I mustn't forget my poppies. So I've got a bigger poppy and a slightly smaller poppy. And if you like a rule of flower arranging, the rule is that you have the larger, more imposing flowers lower down in your vase, and then everything else that is finer towards the outer edges. So you've got something big there. I could have this middle-sized one. If I had a smaller one, I could have it out there. So it's always thinking about threes. So I could have this. The rose isn't going to last much longer, so I might put this in quite low in order that when the rose fades, goes over, the petals fall off, I can rely on my poppy as then being my focal flower. So I've measured up against the jar, and I can put that in there. So at the moment, you can barely see it. I can see it up close. And then this one, I'm going to go slightly higher. So again, hold the stem up and imagine where you want to put it. And then I can see where I need to cut it so that it's just the right length. And if you're nervous about doing that, is to cut them a bit long to begin with, and then you'll soon find out when you put them in the vase that they just look a little bit out of place. So you can lift them up and then just snip off a little bit more. So that is today's vase of flowers in the garden. We've got the rose to remember my mum, beginning of the poppy season. I love using the poppies in their fresh state, their green state in an arrangement, because it won't be very long before they are drying naturally on the stem. And if you are tempted to dry them naturally on the stem, just don't let them go too far, because they just start to degrade. So it's that point when you need to think, when do these stop being really attractive seed heads in my garden, and when is it ready for me to pick them? And if you don't pick them, the seeds will shatter, and of course you need to decide whether you actually want poppies there next year. So I will probably leave it another week in my garden, wait till all the petals have faded on the poppies, and I can just see a few more petals on my poppies as I look across there, and then I will be picking them. They get a bit straggly. That's probably the reason why they come out. It starts to look a bit straggly in the garden, and the leaves start to crinkle and decay a little bit. So that's the time to whip them out. And the way I would do that normally is a sort of, although I'm not a gardener, I do it as a gardening project and just take the whole plant out, take them to the compost heap, trim off the roots and get them to a length. So you can hear me loud and clear, but the Wi-Fi seems to be going in there. But I have to have I never know whether that's my Wi-Fi issue or yours as the viewers. I have tested before that I think I can go to the end of my garden and be okay with the Wi-Fi, but perhaps next time I'll have to go back to my patio table and just be a little bit closer to the router. So that's done, and then my herb teapot is done. So I just need to tip the water out of that and refresh that. And then I should have put that down more gently. That went a little bit of a chinking sound there. I've refreshed the arrangement we made in class. And then what I'll probably do when we've finished is, I've made my cup of tea, but that's right over there. I've cut some weeping willow ready for class in Canterbury. And what I'm going to be spending, if you need me later on today, I need to grab my compost bucket, otherwise I'll get into trouble making a mess on the patio. I want to use the trails of this weeping willow. We're doing a section of classes on foam-free flower arranging. So I need to have done a certain amount of prep for class. I'm not going to strip all of these because it will be a teaching point for class, but I want to strip a good 3/4 of these leaves off, in order that I go to class, we don't spend the whole class watching me take off these leaves. And then we're going to fashion a structure out of these in order that we can arrange our flowers. It sounds like someone's breaking in there. I think it's the Dickens. Oh no, it's not. It's a pair of pigeons mating by the looks of it. So there we go. So thank you for joining me this morning. I do hope you are enjoying these morning Facebook Lives, and I hope you're able to get out, if not into your garden, open your windows, open the back door, make yourself a cup of tea, and just take a few moments just to be in the moment. It's quite satisfying doing this. Anyway, I'm sure you don't want to see me spending ages and ages doing this. So if you're in my Facebook group, I will post a photograph of my revamped flower arrangements. And if you're interested in some free DI wedding flowers classes, leave me a comment. If you've got a family wedding coming up on the horizon, you've been asked to do the flowers and you're a tiny bit scared, I'm hosting a free sessions of classes. They're actually classes I'm going to send to you as pre-recorded videos. They are actually videos I've downloaded from my membership group for DIY wedding flowers. So you'll get to hear me speaking live to the people who are watching the videos live. I'll show you how to make buttonholes, bouquets, simple table arrangements, and a flowing arrangement for the top table. So if you're interested in that, if you're a little bit scared about doing the wedding flowers, you just want to build your confidence, or you want it to confirm that what you're doing is the right thing for your wedding, if you are already an experienced flower arranger, this may well be the class for you. I will need to have your email address, and you'll be put on my email list. And all I always say is I do email a weekly newsletter out. So if you can unsubscribe at any time, but of course if you unsubscribe from my weekly newsletter, you won't get the rest of the classes that you signed up for. So think about it as being on my mailing list for 8 weeks, and then you can decide whether or not you want to continue to be on my mailing list. I think actually this is probably quite a good idea, letting me. I picked these on Sunday, so it's Tuesday now, and because of the hot weather they have slightly shriveled, and I think that's probably because they're not quite so juicy, it's making it slightly easier for me to pull them off. So I shall say goodbye, thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you Facebook Live on Friday at about midday. It does tend to vary, so you're best off checking on my Facebook group or my Facebook page. And if you want to join the Facebook group, if you search Flowers Start World, you will find it there, and I'll also leave a link to the group in the description underneath this video when it's all been uploaded. So I shall say goodbye and catch up with you either on Friday or next Tuesday at breakfast time. That's all from me for now, and see you later.